This episode of Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico is sponsored by Notch Brewing, located in Salem, Mass, brewing and serving European-influenced beer in their beer hall and beer garden on the beautiful Salem Harbor. Notch just opened their second location at 525 Western Avenue in Brighton, Mass, just minutes from downtown Boston. The new Notch location also has a beer hall, a large beer garden, and an outdoor live performance and music space. They have a DJ spinning really cool vinyl as well. They will also be hosting live shows. Not only do you get some of the finest brews around, you can also enjoy live music in their outdoor venue. Notch's beer is available at retail throughout Mass and Rhode Island, and also through mail order direct from Mass and PA. If you haven't tried Notch yet, it's about time you do. Get yourself a Notch beer, or better yet, head over to Notch Brewing and tell them Twisted Rico sent you. Welcome to Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico. I'm your host, Steve Ricardo. This week, I'm going to play you an interview that I did with Thalia Zedek, who has an outstanding body of work from her early days with the Dangerous Birds, Uzi, Live Skull, to her groundbreaking and fantastic band Come, onto releasing 8 solo records, 3 solo EPs, and a live album. And she has a new record coming out later this year called Perfect Vision on Thrill Jockey. Oh man, I'm telling you, one of my great moments. This is why I do the show, so I can talk to people like Thalia. I did have one minor blunder during my interview, which I wanted to mention now. The song 1926, I thought it was a cover of a song by a band called V, and it was, but I got confused and didn't mention that, and we clarified that because that's on the 2001 album called Been Here and Gone, which originally came out on Matador and is being re-released on vinyl for the first time by Thrill Jockey. There's going to be a show at the Midway Saturday, July 17th, which if you're listening this week is this Saturday, and Eric Martin from the Neats and Richie Parsons, Unnatural Acts, a couple of legends in their own right, are also on the bill. And it's really exciting because it was fun talking to Thalia. She has had an unbelievable career. She's still putting records out. She's one of my favorites of all time as far as songwriters go. And before we play the interview, I want to play you the aforementioned song, 1926, which was on the Been Here and Gone album, which once again came out on CD on Matador, never on vinyl, and Thrill Jockey's re-releasing it. They will have copies for sale at the show at the Midway Cafe this Saturday. So let's listen to that song right now, and then we'll play the interview for you.
Another cigarette, almost dawn when the morning first breaks. Too many people know your first name. I'm just one, and after a while I can't bring myself to say, be sure you notice always what you're eating. Be sure you notice always what you're eating. New York night, 1926, it all looked different. You starve your telephone, now your servants can bring you messages. The open fields where people call up to no reply. You can't help it if you get out of bed. You might meet a spy. We used to be lovers a long time ago. We used to be lovers a long time ago. Your God hates me. He can't feel my flesh. He leaves me panting like a dog at the edge of your bed. Your God hates me. He can't feel my flesh. He leaves me panting like a dog at the edge of your bed. Your God hates me. He can't feel my flesh. He leaves me panting like a dog at the edge of your bed. Your God hates me. Your God hates me. Your God hates me. Your God hates me. Your God hates me.
You know, I was like a huge Dangerous Birds fan. I even made 2 of my own homemade Dangerous Birds shirts. And I used to go to Storyville a lot and see you guys. And I was at the last Mission of Burma show, but I was there because I knew that the Dangerous Birds were opening the show.
Oh my God.
This
You
is
are
like-
a fan.
That was 83, but I think I started, the Dangerous Birds came out around, I don't know, maybe 80, because I knew you had that single, and Emergency was on that Laughing at the Ground compilation.
Right. Yeah. Propeller Records.
Yeah. Eric Martin was on the show. I was trying to find out what Propeller Records was, but he couldn't really explain it to me. He said it was like a collective of people. Do you
Yeah.
remember what it was?
Yeah. It was like, it was a record label. It was a cooperative record label. So like a co-op, which I guess, can mean different things, but in the sense that everyone kind of works there and everyone kind of reaps the rewards of it. So at the time, I think this was pre-Modern Method. Maybe Ace of Hearts was around, but there really weren't any record labels in Boston or really New York, and there was not a lot of, there was a really good music scene, but not really a way to, get your music out there. So a bunch of bands kind of who all were friends, more or less, got together and decided to start a record label, a cooperative record label. And I just happened to be kind of living at ground zero for that because the main band that started the label was a band called Wild Stairs. Who,
Yeah, they ended up on Ace of Hearts, yeah.
Yeah, did they? Maybe.
Yeah, they put Rick Hart recorded them anyways. I think they had some single or
I should know that, but yeah, my memory. I'm still friends with those guys. Actually, they all live out in L.A. But and then also, I was living with Justin from the Wild Stairs and Michael Cudahy from
Christmas.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, later to become Combustible Edison and all that stuff. So and I think. Was I in Dangerous? I might have just started. Yeah, Dangerous Birds might have just formed.
I don't know much about Wild Women.
White Women, yeah.
Women. Sorry, I didn't even know about that band till I read a bio of yours. I was like, I didn't know she was in a band before the Dangerous Birds.
Yeah, I was in, and it was a pretty strange and cool band, and we played a lot, but we weren't like very popular. I was in a band with it was started by Dolores Paradise, who was Lou Miami's wife.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and her lover Judy Jetson, and at different times Leslie Green was in it, and then I was in it, and sometimes we were a trio, sometimes we were a 4-piece. I think it started as a 4-piece, and then we became a trio. And so because of like the Lou Miami connection, we played Cantones a lot. We played the Underground a lot. I remember like opening for Bound and Gagged a lot. I remember that band. So we were definitely around, but we didn't get like a lot of radio play, and we weren't necessarily a super popular band, but we played all the places.
I found out about the Dangerous Birds and became a fan because I was a music director at WD Jam in Framingham, and we loved the Dangerous Birds there.
Yeah.
And we play like Emergency and Alfa Romeo, Smile at Your Face. You only had a few songs out, but you guys managed to get your songs in the right places, like on the right compilations. And didn't something end up on Sub Pop at some point?
Yeah, that was really weird. It did, and that was like much later after the band broke up. And I remember like getting a phone call because this was 1984 and there was no internet yet. And I got a phone call from I think it might have been Bruce Pavitt. It was like,
wow,
because they were just a cassette label at the time. It was Bruce and Jonathan.
Right,
they were DJs and they decided to put out a cassette. And I remember one of them calling me and explaining who they were and. Did I have any material from Dangerous Birds and would we want to be on the cassette? And I said, sure.
And there was also a Boston compilation, the Mass Ave comp. Dangerous Birds were on that as well.
We were?
I think it was Alfa Romeo was on that, I'm pretty sure. I'd have to double check, but I think
I have no memory of that. Do you remember what label or who put that out?
That was on Rhino. It came up. Brett Milano put the whole thing together, like the Neighborhoods and Liars and Mission of Burma, all these Boston bands. Do you remember that show at the Bradford Hotel?
Oh,
by
yeah.
the way?
Oh, yeah. We played with Negative FX. I remember.
Yeah, the riots. You guys started a riot. No, I'm just kidding. You didn't start the riot. They did. Do you remember the riot when everyone with the cops showed up and?
God, kind of. I just remember being like a little bummed out at having to play in front of like 200 16-year-old hardcore boys.
I think there were more than 200.
Yeah, I was like, it was a strange bill, but they were okay.
It was a great show to be on.
It was a really fun show. I don't It's so weird. I don't remember the riot.
The cops had to come and stand on the stage. You might have been backstage because it was after your set. It happened during Negative FX.
I was probably like watching from the side.
Because you guys did the matinee, because the nighttime show Proletariat was the opening band. That was a great day. I was really young, but I remember it. I have to talk about Uzi for a minute because Al Quint, I don't know if you know him, the well-known music journalist, he wrote me on Twitter when he saw that I had you on the show. He goes, "You better ask her about Uzi." And I was like, I am. I loved Uzi, the Sleep Asylum EP. It was kind of the beginning of your long relationship with Gerard Kozlow having an interest in the band, because that was the first time you signed with him on Homestead, which later ended up, went to Matador.
Right, yeah.
So Uzi wasn't around very long, though, were they?
No, we weren't around that long. When did we started? God, I'm not great with the timeline here.
I think it was probably 84 to 86 around that
Okay,
time.
that sounds right. That sounds right.
Because I know you were in Live Skull around 87 or 88, so I know it
Yeah.
was before that.
Yeah.
But that band generated a huge buzz. The Village Voice and really good magazines loved Uzi. Just like the Dangerous Birds, you seem to always get the right writers interested. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean, I do remember. I remember Dangerous Birds doing really well. I don't know exactly why, but yeah, the people really liked us, and we played in New York a lot. I remember playing at Danceteria with like ESG, and I remember like maybe even like a really early version of Sonic Youth or something. I kind of remember this show, but I remember playing the Mud Club. Like the Mud Club was still there, yeah, and it was strange, you know, because I went from kind of like White Women, which was fun, but like no one was really very interested in. And I remember like I had a job waitressing on Friday and Saturday nights because I knew that we would never have shows on Friday and Saturday nights. You know, like that was like the same.
Was that in Boston somewhere you were waitressing?
At Aegean Fair in Kenmore Square.
Oh
I don't
wow,
know if you remember
Kenmore
that
Square,
place.
when it used to be a cool place, right?
Yeah.
Kenmore Square.
Then it became, I think it turned into that disco. Anyway, it was like a Greek restaurant that was open till like 4 a.m. And but yeah, and so White Women was never particularly popular, and then after they kept going for quite a while after I left, but we were a 3-piece at that point, and 2 of the 3-piece moved to Brockton, and I kind of commuted to Brockton for a while, and then I was like, I don't want to.
Who wants to go to Brockton?
It'd be like on the well, I'd be on the subway, then I'd be on like the Bat bus. I mean, this is just to get to rehearsal like twice a week, and I think shortly thereafter I said, you know, I don't really want to.
I don't want to make fun of Brockton, but for the people out there listening that are not familiar with the Boston area, it's not one of, you know, our most beautiful parts of the state. But so going to New York a lot and playing with the Dangerous Birds and Uzi, is that how you met the Live Skull people?
You know what's funny is that Uzi actually never played out of town.
Really?
Yep. We I don't think we ever did an out of town show.
Wow.
Yeah. But we did a lot like in town. We played a lot, but yeah, we never played New York or.
Did
or
you know
Maxwell's.
Gerard from Boston?
I knew
how he
Gerard from
signed?
Boston. Yeah, I knew him from Conflict magazine in Boston.
Oh, yeah,
and he
Conflict.
knew me from like Dangerous Birds, and I was working at Newbury Comics in the early '80s, and he used to come in there. Like I can't remember exactly like how we met, but he was just, you know, yeah, he was
a fan
he
like
was-
me.
and he was on the scene a lot, you know,
Yeah.
because he was reviewing shows for his magazine and stuff when he was 16. I don't know if you remember Conflict magazine, but
Yeah, I do.
It was
I
like
do.
like having-
Bands That Could Be God. He put that compilation out. Bands That
yeah,
Could Be God.
yeah.
It was a great early comp.
yeah, that's
And
right.
then, you
that's
know, when
right.
he moved to New York, Homestead, I
right.
worked in the same building as him when I was running Giant Records. He was down the hall. So I remember, you know, when the Uzi record came out, and I was like, there's Thalia. I was wondering what was happening to her, you know, because when the Dangerous Birds split up. Live Skull put 3 records out. I always say this
with me, they put out
with
3
you.
before
oh,
me
yeah,
too.
yeah. I mean, you were on three of
Yeah.
their records. I meant to say, Positraction. Is that how you pronounce it?
Positraction.
Positraction. That was probably the 3 that you played on, the one that got the most attention. Would you say?
Maybe, you know, it's always hard to know that kind of stuff when it's hard, you know, when you put out a record, it's hard to say like what got the most attention. I don't really know, because we broke up like not that long after that came out, and that whole period in my life was such a whirlwind of like touring and recording, and like I didn't really have time to sort of slow down, and
You were still pretty
See.
young at that point, too.
I was pretty young, yeah, relatively young. I think when I joined the band, I was, you know, not like super young, but maybe I was like 25, 26.
I love the photos of Live Skull. It looks like the coolest band of all time. When you look at the photos,
Yeah.
the band just was so... I know they've had a lot of different members and stuff. but-
Right. When I joined them, they were in transition. So I had been a huge fan of Live Skull, like really big, since I can't remember. I think I discovered them because when Uzi put out a record on Homestead, Gerard sent me, like when the Uzi record, all the records, that the Homestead records, which were amazing. So that's how I discovered Big Black, Scratch Acid, Dinosaur, who were just Dinosaur at
Yeah.
that time. I
Sailor
it was
66, but you probably
yeah,
knew them
I
from
knew them
Boston.
from Boston, yeah. But like what an amazing record label, and Live Skull. And so I fell in love with Live Skull, and because they were in New York, they played in Boston a lot, and so I was like a really hardcore fan. If you would ask me back then, like, what's your favorite bands, I would have said Live Skull.
Wow, that's cool.
So I was a huge fan, and so when they asked me if I was interested in like trying out being the lead singer, it was really almost like a dream come true, because Uzi had broken up, and by then, and unbeknownst to me, because we never played New York, but apparently the record had made it to New York, probably through Gerard, and
right.
and Live Skull had heard it, and Thurston Moore and Sonic Youth had heard it, and they all really dug it, and but I didn't know any of this because the band broke up before the record came out. So I was with my friends the Wild Stairs, and Live Skull was playing in Boston and playing in Providence, and being an Uber fan that I wanted to see both shows. And my friends, the Wild Stairs, were opening up for them in Providence. So I saw the Boston show, and then I traveled with my friends to the Providence show, and they were like, oh, come hang out with us in the dressing room. And so they were sharing a dressing room with Live Skull. And so after the show, I was back there having beers with the Wild Stairs and got to talking with Mark and, and Marnie, and they were very friendly. And they're, when I told them my name, which is pretty unusual, they were like, Thalia Zedek. They were like, were you in a band called Uzi? And like, I was like, yeah. And they were like, oh, wow. They had thought, based on my voice, they had thought I was a boy. And the picture, the photos of the band on the Uzi record were very sort of ambiguous. I think I was like in profile wearing a hoodie, kind of like Don't Look Now, Don't Look Back. And they were like, we thought you were like a small Lithuanian boy. And I was like, no. and I heard from them a little while later. I think they talked to me about it. They were looking for a lead singer, and they actually didn't know that I had played guitar at that point. But and they asked me if I wanted to try out, and it wasn't so much that they didn't have a lead singer, and they're like, yeah, none of us really want to be the lead singer, and we're all kind of like trading vocals, but we kind of want to have.
I read that. I read that they were interested in just doing their playing instruments, and that's why they recruited you.
They're like, we sing, I don't mind singing a song or two, but like none of us really want to be the lead singer, and it's been kind of an issue, and so would you want to try out? So I did. Sent them a couple things. Like they sent me some stuff they were working on, and somehow I recorded, I think just on cassette, something, and sent it back. And I ended up working with them on Dust It then, probably while I was still in Boston. I think I was still living in Boston when we recorded Dust It. And after that, I moved and joined the band. But the band was kind of in a transitional period then. I didn't know it. James Lowe, who's a fantastic drummer, ended up going on to beat drum in Chavez and a bunch of other stuff. He was leaving I think he was going back to school or something like that, and they were bringing in a new drummer, Rich Hutchins, who's actually in the reformed version. So Dusted actually ended up being sort of like half Rich and half James. So yeah, I never actually played any live shows with James. All my live shows were with Rich.
So you were down in New York for like 3 years, and then you ended up leaving New York,
right,
and coming back to Boston.
Yeah.
And I imagine that's when you met Chris Brokaw.
I had met Chris before I moved to New York, actually.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, because I'd had this band, after Uzi broke up, there was a band in town that I was really good friends with and that I really loved called Nuclear Theater. And
okay.
They didn't play out not a lot of people knew about them, but I knew about them, and I really loved them. The lead singer was Fernando Avila, who went on to form Subskin Cables that became pretty big in Sense Around, and Jerry DiRienzo, he ended up moving to New York and being in a band called Cell, and what was his other, Ugly Beauty, and then Doug, whose name I'm gonna space out on, who ended up playing in Bulkhead, being the drummer
Oh,
in
okay.
Bulkhead.
I remember Bulkhead.
Doug, man, he left town. He was a great drummer and a very interesting guy. But I'm sorry, I can't. If he ever hears this, my apologies for not remembering his last name right now. And this woman Renee was on bass. But anyway, so I met Jerry DiRienzo, and Nuclear Theater broke up. And after Uzi broke up, I knew I wanted to play with those guys. Jerry and and Adam Gaynor was one of their drummers, and James Apt was the bass player. Who James Apt ended up
Your
being...
memory's pretty good, actually.
James Apt ended up being in Six Finger Satellite. I don't know if you
yes,
familiar with
yes.
that band. Yeah. Well, I'm still friends with a lot of these guys to
That's
this
cool.
day. So yeah, so it's pretty fresh to me. But anyway, we had a band called Via, and we did very few shows before I moved to New York, and I managed to convince James Apt, Jerry DiRienzo, and Adam Gaynor to move to New York with me, because I was going to New York to join Live Skull, but we had just gotten Via together, and I didn't want to lose that
wanted to
band.
do
And
both
also,
bands?
I wanted to do both because I played guitar in Via, and
Uh-huh.
Live Skull was it was very different for me to just go from being sort of more of a songwriter in terms of the music to being like a singer who just wrote melodies and lyrics, so I wanted to keep both things going if I could, and anyway, I'm really rambling. I'm a terrible rambler.
You met Chris through all those people.
So yeah, thank you.
You can ramble,
Feel,
it's fine.
Feel free to rein me in. I tend to go off on tangents. So I met Chris through Jerry DiRienzo in Boston before I joined Live Skull, or maybe when I was in the process of joining through Via. And Chris had just moved to Boston from Oberlin, and him and Jerry had gone to high school together. And I
In
think
Scarsdale, New York. 'Cause
Scarsdale, New
Chili
York.
Kurtz from Cage Teeth, who's a huge Thalia Zedek fan. I know that because we were friends. Her and Chris and a few other, Arena, this guitar player, they all went to high school in Scarsdale, New York, and they all ended up in Boston. Like 4 of them. Steve Mayone was the 4th one.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And so that makes sense. But so you and Chris, did you guys hit it off right away and decide to play?
Yeah, so he invited, Chris had just moved to town, and Jerry said that we were at one of our practices, and he lived in Somerville, and him and Adam, the drummer, and James and James didn't live there, but anyway, he had a whole recording thing set up, Jerry did, and he invited Chris over to jam, and we played together, all of us. And I was immediately like, "Oh my God, this guy's amazing!" And it was like amazing, sort of immediate sort of connection. And I was like, "We've got to ask Chris to join Via. He's got to be in the band. I won't play guitar, and if that's what it takes." Jerry's like, "I don't want 3 guitar players," and I was like, "Well, I'll play bass, or I'll do something else." But he's amazing, and Jerry kind of negged it for whatever reason. I don't know why exactly. He's like, no, I want to keep the band the way it is. So anyway, that's when I first met Chris. And then when I moved to New York, he would visit me a lot in New York.
So you kind of had a feeling that in the future you guys might be playing together? That's a pregnant
He ended
pause.
up, so he, I don't know if then, at that point, no, not necessarily. But when I moved to New York and all my Via bandmates moved to New York, we all moved to New York, and then Chris would come and visit and stuff. And he actually ended up playing drums in Via.
Oh, really?
We were one of the
Wow.
first bands to play at the Middle East. We might have been the first band, but I
Did Billy
don't know.
Wayne drag you in there?
Yes, through Billy Wayne, and at the time, I don't know where Adam was, but he couldn't do the show. We didn't have a drummer, or I can't remember what it was, but Chris ended up playing drums in Via. Maybe on a couple of shows, but definitely on one. And he would stay with me, and he's one of those guys that always has a guitar in his hand,
Right.
So he would stay with me and just be like noodling on guitar the entire time, and so then I'd start noodling on guitar. So yeah, I mean, we kind of started playing together, and I think I did in the back after Via broke up. That kind of fell apart, and I mean, Jerry ended up staying, and Adam ended up staying in New York for a long time. James went to film school, and then ended up back in Boston and joining Six Finger Satellite. But But I think at some point I had filed away at that time in the back of my mind that I want to form, if and when Live Skull ended or I left, which I had a feeling was probably going to happen, that I wanted to form a band with Chris.
Yeah, you guys released the Car EP on Sub Pop in 1991. That was a pretty good way to start things off. And then you put 4 records out on Matador, and they're all like really good albums. I remember seeing Come at the Whiskey in Los Angeles when I was out there working for labels, and guys were one of the coolest bands. Oh, wow. I mean, that was a really good run for you, the whole Come thing. Is Come like pretty much over, or do you think?
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because actually we reissued, Matador reissued our first record, 1111.
Oh yeah, good one.
In 2013, and we did. We got back together for that. Not got back together as in being a
reunion kind of show.
Yeah, it was more like a reunion. We did some reunion shows, reunion tours, which were a blast. And the chemistry in that band is still like, it's crazy. I love playing with that band and those guys. The original version, the second round was very good too. So I'm not dissing that, but with Arthur and Sean and the ones we did the first 2 records with. So we did that, and that was fun. And then we just signed a deal with Fire Records, which is a London-based record label, and they're going to reissue the entire catalog.
Oh, really?
Including 1111, which is still being licensed to Matador for a couple more years. They got it for like 10 years, and that'll end soon. So they're going to do that one last, but this October they're releasing a deluxe version, so that means there's going to be a ton of extra tracks of the second record, Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Right.
So that'd be a double LP, plus also a standalone sort of LP of Peel session tracks from 93 and 94. So I'm pretty excited about that, and that's coming out in October. So I've actually been in touch with those guys a lot, because there's been a lot of sort of archival stuff we've had to do, and test pressings and remasterings we've had to approve. So and we're going to do a show like a sort
Come?
of Come is going to play in New York, and I think it's November 3rd and 4th.
That's cool.
This really cool club called Union Pool. We play 2 nights there, and we're going to play, I think, in Boston, but as you probably know, booking stuff is a little bit crazy right now because of pandemic stuff. So we're waiting to hear on when the Boston show is going to happen. But we're talking to the Sinclair, and we're kind of trying to clear a date with them. So we'll be doing that, and there'll be some unreleased stuff coming out. So.
There were 4 great albums besides that EP: Don't Ask, Don't Tell, Near Life Experience, Gently Downstream, and 1111. I wanted to mention that song Submerge. Jesse Perez.
Oh yeah.
I had Ben Diley on my show not too long ago from the Lemonheads, and Jesse was in. Jesse actually directed that video.
Yeah,
that was pretty early on for him as far as his getting
super
into
early on.
Which is really cool. I think you could still find that on YouTube. I didn't look for it, but I bet you it's on there somewhere, because everything is.
What's Jesse up to? And he works on movies now,
yeah,
right?
well, he directed some Orange is the New Black, Girls. He's been into a lot.
Oh, awesome.
He did a Foo Fighters video.
I know he did tons of stuff, but just so hard to keep up with them. At a certain point, I was just like, he's doing great,
The guys in that band, the Lemonheads, they all seem to become successful in their own way.
Yeah,
they
definitely.
had that kind of aura about them. I'm trying to keep this going, because you have so much good stuff that I'm trying to get it all in. Around a few years later, after Come kind of went on a hiatus or whatever, around 2001 is when you put out the record Been Here and Gone, which we're celebrating. It's going to be re-released by Thrill Jockey on vinyl for the first time. And that record was your first Thalia Zedek solo record, pretty much. And the lineup you had on that record was phenomenal. And you've played with a lot of those people for on and off for years.
They're all going to be here at 1:00. We have a rehearsal, actually.
Really?
Yeah, that's why I was bringing my guitar in. Yeah, because we're doing a show at the Midway next
Talia rehearses
Saturday.
Upstairs from the studio,
Yeah.
which is pretty awesome.
So I managed to get everyone except for Beth Heinberg, who played piano on a couple of the tracks. And she lives in Asheville now, so that's a bit far away. But yeah, like Mel's Mel's going to play with me. Mel Letterman has played piano on most
Mel's
of the
been
tracks.
on the show. He's a riot.
Yeah, yeah. He's a good friend, and he played on a lot of my solo
Right.
stuff. Chris Brokaw, who's
The
back.
great Chris Brokaw.
Yeah, is playing, and Daniel Coughlin's playing drums.
So it's like an all-star band, really.
Dave Curry on viola. Yeah, well, Daniel and Chris had obviously were playing with me in Come at
Right.
the time. So, and I think Come took a hiatus, and then I can't remember when we officially broke up, but it might have been after the record, after Been Here and Gone. I can't remember, but I think the writing was pretty much on the wall. But Daniel had joined on drums for the last record, and so he played with me on the solo stuff, and I asked Chris to come and play, and because we were still pals and doing a lot of shows together. And then Mel, no one really knew that Mel played piano except for Mel, obviously, but because he was the bass player at Victory at
Right.
Sea.
Oh, yeah.
and
I love that band.
I remember
You're on one of their records. You're part of that chorus they did. That was great.
Yeah.
Carousel album.
Yeah,
I remember that.
That was fun.
It was like an all-star women's, like Heidi Saperstein, Megan McLaughlin. I can't remember all of them, but it was really a cool. And you were there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I
yeah,
asked Mel about that. He faintly remembers it happening.
I was friends with those guys. Like really, I was a big fan of Mona from
Mona
back
Elliott.
in Malachite days,
Right.
and then Spore, and then when she formed Victory at Sea, at first just with Christina Files on drums. They were a duo, which was really, really interesting and quite different. And then the first time I realized I knew Mel through them, because then Mel joined as a bass player. And anyway, we became friends. And
Plays piano on a lot of your records. I was gonna
Yeah,
before we plugged the Been Here and Gone, I wanted to mention that you had 7 other solo records, and there was some really good ones in there. Perfect Vision is the one that's coming out this year. You just finished that one, but before that,
Thank you.
I have to mention the 2018 album Fighting Season, which Chris Brokaw once again and Jay Mascis actually plays on. The song Bend Again, beautiful song, and the title track, and that whole record, you can listen to it on Bandcamp, is just absolutely phenomenal. I think, it's hard to say that's one of my favorite records from your entire career, but I am going to say it. And it's like so far into your career. The songwriting, I thought, was brilliant. And I read on a bio or somewhere that the title track was influenced by what was going on in Afghanistan. I had to ask you about that. Is that for real?
Yeah. I mean, the not so much necessarily the title track, but Fighting Season, the first time I heard that term had to do with Afghanistan, because, they have a fighting season.
Crazy.
It's very like war torn. It's a very combative. I don't want to say culture, but there's been a lot of war and strife there for a very, very long time, even before we got in, and not just with Russia and against the states, but also within each other, and it's a very mountainous region and has very brutal winters. And so there would be the winter, and then there would be what they would call it the fighting season.
Yeah.
The fighting season was
crazy.
when the snow melted enough to be able to like get over the pass. So that's what I got the term from. It's not, the song itself is not necessarily about Afghanistan.
But you were influenced by it.
It was influenced by it, yeah. And just,
I read that somewhere.
Just
I can't remember where.
how fucked up people are, and and just sort of like the innate human drive to kill each other.
You also had 3 EPs to go along with all those records. You're a Big Girl Now is one that I personally really like, because there were a couple of songs, Everything Unkind and No Fire. That was a good one. I think that was on Kimchi Records.
Yeah.
That's a great record. You got just an amazing, that's why I've been wanting to get you on. I mentioned all that stuff, and you had the E project too, which I don't even know what to say about that, because you did 3 records with E as well. So you on Thrill Jockey also?
2 on Thrill Jockey, and then the last one called Complications is on Silver Rocket, which is a really cool small label based in Prague, actually. So,
Have you ever gone like even 1 year of your life without writing a record?
yeah, totally. It's weird because I was nominated for this grant, which I'm sure I won't get. There's a million other people.
I'm sure you're going to get
It's some
it.
Boston thing. I've never. That's never happened to me before, and I've never filled out a grant application for anything before. But I have a lot of artist friends, like visual artist friends, and they're always like applying for grants, because they can't play shows really with a painting. But anyway, so I had to put a resume down. I was like, I don't know what to do, and so they're like, well, just I looked at what other musicians do, and they're like, just put out a discography. So I did actually have to not too long ago sit down and figure out, list everything, and I realized that there were some pretty big gaps. I was like, wow, that was a long time. What was I doing in that 4 years?
Really?
Like,
You went
yeah.
4 whole years without releasing a
Yeah,
record?
between Trust Not Those Trust Not Those in Whom Without Some Touch of Madness. With the second full length the first one I did for Thrill Jockey came out after Kimchi. Between that one and Liars and Prayers was a 4-year gap.
Wow.
And then I think between Liars and Prayers, the
It
next
doesn't
one.
seem like you took any breaks. When you look at the body
There was a
of work.
period of time that I did. I think I kind of got a little bit. I think I was a little bit burned out. Maybe feeling a little bit frustrated. I was like Daniel left the band after Liars and Prayers, and it just cycled through a lot of different drummers, and it was just kind of hard for me to get things together. And then I kind of got another little spark kind of happening. I was just kind of kicked myself in the butt a little bit, and so I think there was a period that was sort of between the second and third Thalia Zedek band record, and between the third and fourth was less of a break, but still it might have been 2 or 3 years. Yeah.
Before we talk about the show, which I want to totally plug here, is Perfect Vision going to be like the 2018 record? Do you see it? Because it seemed like it was a more mellower kind of record for you. Is it going to be like that record? I know that you can hear, you just mentioned to me before that you can hear that on Bandcamp now, but it's not officially out yet.
Right.
The single is on Bandcamp. Cranes?
It's called Cranes. Yep.
Is that record going to be? How would you compare that to the last record?
Gosh, how would I compare it?
You don't have to compare it. I was just curious because
This is really different. So the reason it's called Perfect Vision, I don't know if people picked up on this, but it's because of 2020. So that's why I called it Perfect Vision, because it's very much of that year.
what a year, huh?
Yeah, and it was recorded, in the middle of the pandemic, and mixed in the middle of the pandemic. Hopefully not released in the middle of the pandemic, but it looks like things are not going to die off.
It was originally scheduled to come out earlier than it is coming out, right?
No,
No,
it was always scheduled for August. Yeah,
August.
Yeah. And I think because of how it was recorded, and sort of the stuff that I learned during lockdown and stuff, I obviously I couldn't rehearse with people, and I couldn't play any shows, and so I finally learned GarageBand and how to record into my computer and be able to send tracks back and forth that were kind of listenable or useful.
It's funny what happens when we have a little time to do things, isn't it? Everyone seems to have
and
that.
forced, because in my thing, I graduated to an MP3 player instead of a cassette player to record my ideas, but I just was never really interested in. I found that it took away from writing. I'd rather be writing songs than recording songs. It's just I mean, a lot of people do both. It's just I never had
You
like
want to let the engineers do the recording.
I just never
yeah.
had that much interest in learning that stuff, and I'm not great at learning that stuff. So, and I tried, and I found it difficult, and I just never wanted to put in the time. But this time, like people were asking me to collaborate and to do stuff, and everything had to be done remotely. So my brother, who's really good at computer stuff,
Dan.
Dan,
He's been around your career a lot.
yeah,
over the
he's
years.
done all my record
Yeah.
covers, and he's a musician too, and he's like
Very supportive, huh?
yeah. He's just like, just come over. I had a book, but that wasn't working for me. So anyway, he helped me, and he was like, you can do this. And once he showed me how to do it, I was able to collaborate with people remotely. And so what's the point I'm getting to? The point is that I think on this record, I felt freer to ask people to play who I maybe normally would not have. So Brian Carpenter, who's a DJ and a musician around town, I asked him to put a trumpet part on something, and this really talented cello player, Allison Chesley, who has a group called Helen Money, which is actually just her, but I'd met her because she's on Thrill Jockey, and I asked her to contribute piano and cello to a couple tracks, and Mel plays on a track, and so I think it's more varied. Instrumental
Can't
wise.
wait to hear the whole
yeah.
thing.
I was able to, since I learned kind of how to demo stuff, I was able to really demo stuff, and I think that was actually good for the writing process and experimenting with stuff. So it's not a weird record, but I don't know what to say about it. I really like it a lot, and I've gotten really good feedback from people who have heard it. They said they really like it. It's in terms of, is it mellow? It's definitely dark, and it's got
One of your records is dark. That was a joke. Sorry.
It's cool. It's got like one really rock song on it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Gavin McCarthy was playing drums, and Gavin, and Winston did all the basic tracks together, and we rehearsed together during the pandemic and with masks and no vocals, and we went into the studio and just recorded all the basics in one day, and then the other stuff kind of got overlaid on top of it. And so there's some rockers in there. I don't know how to describe it though.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm sure a lot of other people are, and I can't wait to hear it. I know Bandcamp, you can hear some of it now, so if you want to check it out, people, you can go there.
I want to give a shout out to Karen Sarkeesian, who plays pedal steel guitar on the single Cranes. She's amazing, and she's a local person, and we had talked. She had said, "Hey, if you ever need any pedal steel on anything," and then I was like, there was a song, and I was kind of like, "Wow, this actually would sound great with pedal steel." But
You played with so many people.
Well, I think,
Wow.
like I said, knowing that every other musician was also at home with nothing to do,
Right.
and people were asking me to, "Hey, will you play on this? Will you do that?" And I was just so happy for anyone to ask me to do anything. I was just like, "Yeah, sure, of course," So I was. So and I knew that everyone else was kind of in the same position, so I felt a lot less sort of shy about just reaching out to people. I was like, yeah, they'd probably be into this because it'd be something to do, and so there's a lot of sharing of ideas and a lot of contributions from a lot of different people on this record.
So Been Here and Gone, yeah, there's going to be a show actually at the Midway Cafe on July 17th, which is a Saturday. And you've got your all-star lineup. And you also have Richie Parsons and Eric Martin playing.
I know.
How did that all come together?
That's crazy. I know. That came together because me and Richie have been friends for a while, and he's a real big supporter of my music. And we've done some. I feel like we've done some solo shows before. He actually covered a song of mine, one of my songs, on recorded a version of it, and so he's a big supporter, and him and Eric, I've known Eric forever, and Eric's wonderful.
They started on Propeller.
Both of those guys are like incredibly talented and
Legends.
wonderful
Yeah.
human beings. So
You can't really get a much better bill than that, I'll tell you. That's
well, so Richie and Eric had been doing these shows at the Midway all through the pandemic, and the Midway was closed, but they would open up to do these like sort of live streams, and they'd let you invite a few people, so they'd be like a very, very small. I think you could have a few friends come and play, and and Richie had invited me. He was doing it once a month, and he had invited me a couple of times to do this with him. And each time I had not wanted to do it because I have someone that I spend a lot of time with in my family and take care of. That's I really could not risk getting. I couldn't do that kind of stuff. It's someone that was at very high risk for COVID. So I would say no. I can't do it.
That's understandable.
20 people at the Midway.
Yeah.
That's too much. It's not worth it. On any level. So anyway, he keep coming back to me, and then the last time he came back to me, he said, like, "Hey, I've got this. What do you think about a show in July?" And at that point, the vaccines were already out, and the elderly person in my life who I was worried about had been vaccinated, and I was soon going to be vaccinated, and I was like, man, this might actually be a real show. So I was like, yeah, I can do that one, and
they're actually selling tickets.
Oh
for
yeah,
the
it's
show.
open. The Midway's open, so that's how that came about. So he had asked me, and him and Eric had been doing it all along, and then I feel kind of bad because then it turned out it was also going to be the release of Been Here and Gone, so I kind of
You hijacked the show?
I kind of hijacked the show a little bit, but they were fine with it. They were like, I was like, well, do you mind if I make it my release show? And they're like, oh, no, that'd
Is
be
there going to be
great.
vinyl available for sale?
Oh,
at the
yeah,
show?
yeah.
Awesome.
I got it. It's sitting at my house. I can't wait to.
If you want to
break
tell
it
us
out.
once again who's going to play with you that
so
night.
yeah, so in my band we're gonna perform Been Here and Gone in its entirety, which is close to an hour long of music, and Chris Brokaw will be joining me on guitar. Mel Letterman will be playing piano. Daniel Coughlin will be playing drums, and Dave Curry will be playing viola. And we're gonna be performing Been Here and Gone, and I'll have the vinyl for sale, and it's got like the special gold edition, and it of course comes with a download code, and because the record's actually been completely out of print, not just.
It never came out on vinyl. Through
It never came out on
Matador, huh?
vinyl. No,
Wow.
it was CD only. It went out of print, and I think they had it for 10 years, and then they took it down from all the sites, so you couldn't really even listen to it on Apple Music or iTunes or anything like that. It was just really unavailable. And a few times I pressed some CDs myself just to sell on tour, but
Good record. 1926 is probably. I mean, people must tell you that's one of the greatest songs in your whole catalog of everything you've
right.
ever done.
I did not write that song.
Who
I
wrote
hope you
that
know.
song?
So I got to give props. So this all goes back to Propeller Records, and back in the
Is
day,
that the V song?
V, yeah, and
I
V,
never knew that was
who
the
I was a
same
huge
song.
fan of theirs, and
Wow.
they did a 12-inch EP on Propeller before the label sort of dissolved, and 1926 was on there. But I already knew that song from their live shows, and I
should have known that was too much of a coincidence.
it was written by Gary. It was written by Gary Gogol, who he was still around, and I'm still pals with him and his wife Wendy, and
There's a great live video of you doing the song in a studio somewhere in
I think
Europe.
it's in Australia.
Australia.
Actually.
That is
Australia.
just. It's heart-wrenching. I mean, the song is like, it's like it just rips your insides
Well, the
apart.
original singer who did that song was Susan Anway, who was the lead singer in V and is an amazing singer, and she's done a few more versions. V's done a few more versions of that as well.
Well, I hope people out there can make it to the show. I'm sure they've already sold a lot of tickets. You've had an amazing career, and I know it's not done yet, and you have a lot more to do. There's a WordPress page called Thalia Zedek .wordpress.com. It's an amazing bio and history of your entire career.
This is called a different girl.
Yeah, I don't know who to put that together.
I know who did that. Yeah,
It's incredible. You could find I actually went there for a little research, so I mean, did you know?
I had to research myself there when I was like filling out this application. I was just like, I can't remember what year this was, but that was a fan page. I still don't have a website. I'm just really slow and bad and lazy about stuff like that. But because there was no website, this woman Anna, who was a
She
huge
covered it all.
Cum fan, yeah, she started this website, and then she's like, well, do you mind? And I was like, no, thank you for doing this, you know. And she kind of stopped a while ago. She was kind of like, yeah, I've kind of moved on, but she still keeps it open and people can add stuff in there. And she was a Cum fan and very young, and she lived out in California, and I actually met her once. She was very, very shy, and I was like, well, we're playing in San Diego. You've got to come and say hello. And she's a very, very nice woman, and she was very young when she started it, and now she's, I don't know exactly what she's doing, but, you know, she's an adult and
It's a great
with
place.
kids and stuff. So she's not, you know, she kind of like, I think around 2018 or something, she was like, I'm going to make this a fan. Anyone send it in, but I'm not going to monitor this anymore. So
Anyone that's a fan of yours and all your projects has to check it out. It's just absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah,
and
you're
I know I
welcome.
threw
Thank
a lot
you.
at you.
I don't know. It's been great. Been fun talking to you.
Cool. And good luck next week. And I can't wait for the new record.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
If you wanna run, then run. If you wanna hide, then hide. If you wanna love, then love. If you wanna fight, then fight. You don't have to have a reason. Don't have to have a reason. If you wanna walk, then walk. If you wanna ride, then ride. If you wanna hate, then hate. And if you wanna try, then try. You don't have to have a reason in the fighting season. You say you wanna talk, let's talk. You say you wanna love, let's love. You say you wanna hurt, I'm hurt. You say you wanna cry, I'm crying. At least we got a reason. It's the fighting season.
And that was the interview with Thalia Zedek. Man, talk about a body of work. You know, I love Thalia's music, and I've had her on my radar to be on the show. I've been a fan since 1981 from the first time I heard the Dangerous Birds. And I did really make 2 Dangerous Birds shirts. I didn't make that up. My friends at WDJM, Steve Peck and Jennifer Whitman and Rob Tim and them, they can clarify that for you. I actually didn't want to tell you this because it would be too embarrassing, but I actually wrote a song called Thalia one time. When I was playing acoustic guitar and I was in college, I wrote a song about her. That's how much I admired her as a songwriter. So that was definitely one of the highlights. You know, I do this podcast, I hate to sound selfish, but I do it for myself because I love the people I have on it. I love music, and I'm going to keep doing it. And the more I get people that I've admired my whole life to come on my show, the happier I will be. So you can't even imagine how happy I am to have had Thalia on the show. And it's going to keep going on like this. I'm going to keep doing it. So get ready for some great guests in the future. You can write to me at twistedrico@gmail.com, as a lot of people do. I should one of these days go over a bunch of those emails with you because they've all been really cool. Like Al Quint did write me on Twitter and say, can you ask Thalia about Uzi? I did not make that up. Lee Harrington from the Neighborhoods wrote me and said, can't believe you have Thalia Zedek on the show. She's awesome. You know, I forgot to mention it to Thalia, but the Charms wrote me and said, ask Thalia about the time her car broke down in front of the greenhouse at Galaxy Park Studios, and we helped her fix her tire. And I forgot to mention that, but that really did happen. But you can follow me on Instagram or Blowing Smoke with TR, at Blowing Smoke with TR. Also on Twitter, at Blowing Smoke BS. We have that great Patreon page, which is going really good. Thank you to everyone, by the way, that supports the podcast on Patreon. It's patreon.com/Twisted Rico. And we also have the YouTube page, which not a lot of people go on that page, but I put it up there for people that don't want to listen on Apple or Spotify and they just want to put YouTube on. And a lot of the shows are there. They're audio versions, but you can still listen to them there. Thank you to Mike Nash here at Voice Motel in Somerville. If you want to record a podcast, get in touch with Mike at Voice Motel on Instagram, and you too can have your very own podcast. Mike does a great job engineering. He also does another show that I'm on, seems to me, with Sibylline Seriano. They're all on Apple, Spotify, Anchor, Google, Breaker, so on and so forth. So till the next time we say goodbye, this is Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico. I'm your host, Steve Ricardo. Keep the rock and roll alive.